Hi everybody, welcome to day 3 of our unit, New York City, a City of Immigrants. Before we get started, as usual, we're going to talk through the 5 moments of today's lesson so we know exactly what it is we're going to be doing today. So first we have our opening do now, but today we have a video, and then we have our before reading activity. This is going to ask you to think back to day 1 and day 2, what you learned about the Wong family, and make some predictions about what we're going to learn about them today. Then we have our text for today. It includes an audio recording, so we're also going to be doing some listening practice. We then have our after reading activity. This is going to ask you to go back to your predictions from the before reading activity, use the new information that you learned to add or change those predictions. Then we have our closing and connecting moment. Teachers, you can choose again from these 4 options, whichever one is going to work best for you and your students to finish up the lesson and to reflect on what you learned today. And as always, below in the slides, you might see the notes for teachers. You can pull these up. It's going to include some tips and suggestions for how to implement today's lesson. So let's go ahead and get started. We are on day 3 of New York City, a City of Immigrants, and we are still with the Wong family who we met in day 1 and day 2. Our essential question is the same. How can objects represent our stories and values? How can objects represent our stories and values? The title of our text today is Finding Community. And at this point, could somebody please read below our lesson objectives here? Teachers, to give students a few minutes to read aloud these lesson objectives, you can go ahead and pause this video while they read them. Okay, thank you for reading our lesson objectives. The first one is to make logical inferences from a text, providing evidence when writing or speaking to support those conclusions. The second one is to participate in a range of conversations and collaborations, building on the ideas of others. So in our first lesson objective, we're taking the information, the evidence we learn about the Wong family, we're using that to support our ideas. In our second lesson objective, we are responding to each other's ideas, we're speaking or writing, and we're in conversation with each other to work together to build our ideas. Let's go ahead and do our opening do now activity. We have our 3 questions here. What do you see? What do you think? What do you wonder? We're going to be using this is a video actually, and teachers, in a moment I'll show you exactly how to click through to get to that video. And students, as you think about your responses, if you feel stuck, here are some ways that you can start. We'll come back to these also in a moment. So teachers, to get to the video that we're going to use today for the do now, just click here. It'll take you right to the Tenement Museum's webpage, and if you scroll down, it's going to be the second video here. Just click play, and it should start with your video. Before we begin, I'm just going to show an example so we know exactly what it is we're going to do today. So just using here the still, not the video, just the still here, going to do my see, think, and wonder. So in the image, I see many people in a line, right? So I see people next to each other here. They're sitting in a line. I think that they are working with their hands. I see their hands on the table, each of them. So whatever work that they're doing, I think that they're working with their hands. And one thing I wonder is, how did it feel to work there? How did it feel to work there? So they're in a line together, they're working with their hands, so I'm really wondering, how did that feel for them? At this point, you guys are going to do the opening do now yourselves. Teachers, you're going to click to this video to get to the video for today. Students, you can use in the bright green box your sentence starters. In the image I see, I think that, one thing I wonder is. You can respond out loud in the chat, or if your teacher has a Google slide or Google Doc, maybe they put the link to that in the chat. Teachers, go ahead and pause this video right now to give us some minutes to do our do now activity. Okay, thank you for participating in our do now. So let's go ahead to our before reading moment. Our first step is to read this line from the text, from today's text. Mrs. Wong remembers that on her first day of work, she sat at a big, heavy, fast-moving sewing machine and earned about $3 for a day of work. It was a start. Teachers, if you'd like at this moment, you can pause and have the student read that line from the text again. Let's move to step 2, our prediction. How will Mrs. Wong's new job affect her family? So students, you're going to respond with your predictions. Let me give you some suggestions if you're not sure how to start those. One thing you could say, they may be affected by. Another way you could say that is, one effect may be. Let me give you an example using the prediction that I'm going to make for this. So one effect may be, they start to feel more used to life in the U.S. I'll read that again. One effect from Mrs. Wong's new job may be, they start to feel more used to life in the U.S. Okay, so at this moment, teachers, to give students some time to make their predictions, you can pause this video. And students, again, if you're feeling stuck for how to start, you can use the sentence starters in green. How will Mrs. Wong's new job affect her family? So go ahead and start your predictions. Okay, so let's move on to step 3, which is to explain our predictions by including a detail that we remember from the previous day's text. Remember I said we'd have to think back to day 1 and day 2 for this before reading activity. So again, a way you can start your explanation for your prediction to start to connect it back to what you already know. I predict this because, and let me show you another example. You can see how it's going to fit with my prediction up here. I predict this because in day 2, the text stated they were learning what it meant to be American. So together, my prediction and my explanation use a detail from day 2. One effect may be they start to feel more used to life in the U.S. I predict this because in day 2, the text stated that they were learning what it meant to be American. So at this moment, you are going to do your own explanations of your predictions, talking about the details that you remember from day 1 or day 2 with the Wong family. Teachers, you can have students say this out loud, write it into the chat, or again, use whatever application you'd like and put a link to that into the chat. So to give students a few minutes to explain their predictions, let's go ahead and pause this video, and students, you can start your explanations. You can use this phrase if you need help getting started. I predict this because. Okay, we are finished with our before reading activities. Thank you. Let's go ahead and get ready to read our text. We're going to read our purpose here below in the orange box. So today we are reading to learn about how Mrs. Wong's community and her union helped to advocate for the things that she and her family needed. So I'll read it one more time. We're reading to learn how Mrs. Wong's community and her union helped to advocate for the things that she and her family needed. We have here our academic vocabulary. You can always click through. I'm going to click through for the word advocate because that's in our purpose for today. Let's remind ourselves what it means. An advocate is someone who supports a cause, like an advocate for outdoor recess. So it's when you fight for something you believe in. Advocate is also a verb or action meaning to speak in favor of. So you can advocate for the outdoor recess, meaning you can fight for what you think is right. So that is our word here, advocate. As we go into the text, teachers, just a quick demonstration. Here is how we get to the audio recording. It's going to open up an audio file that you can just play right away. And if you'd like to open the text, that link will be here, and it's going to open up a PDF of today's reading. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's get started with our text.